On today's program, I welcome Dean Mercado, the CEO of Online Marketing Muscle. Dean, it's a pleasure to have you back on Straight Talk.
Jeff, as always, it's a pleasure, man.
Today's topic is a good one, Dean. I love this. Revolutionize your marketing. Dive into the three key stages of the buyer's journey. Now, Dean, everyone talks about the buyer's journey, but you have three stages.
Right.
I'm color me mystified. Tell me about those three.
Absolutely. Uh, and this kind of information is available all around the internet, but it's how you apply it really is what comes down to it. And first and foremost, what is it? Well, a buyer's journey is that research process a buyer goes through before making any kind of purchasing decision, right? Now, I want to point out that their buyer's journey, the process they go through, is not the same thing as your sales process. And this is a big problem that many service companies have all the time is we think that people will buy when we want them to, but that's not the case. They buy when they're ready, when they're good and ready, not when we want them to. So understanding the process that they're going through is critical to you actually creating deeper relationships and making a great sale, not experiencing things like buyer's remorse immediately following, things like that. So let's get into this process. But before I do, what's the sales process? Sales process is everyone has a different sales process, whether you have it documented or not, right? So before we go in, I'll say, some of you might be prospecting and then you qualify and then you set appointments and then you go ahead and you provide a quote and then you close. That's what many of you do. That is not the experience that the buyer is going through. In their head, they're going through a 1, 2, 3, and it's awareness, consideration, and decision. Now, first and foremost, the awareness stage. What's happening there? What's going on in their head? This is where they're first identifying, hey, I've got a problem. I've got a problem, and I think it warrants solution. Now, some problems are much more serious than others, right? It could be a simple problem like, I'm hungry, what am I going to eat? To my office is filthy and it needs to be cleaned more regularly, right? Or I'm getting a lot of headaches in my place of business. Is there a mold issue? Whatever that is, they're starting to get aware and become aware that a problem actually exists in the first place. That's what we call the awareness stage. Now, when they're going through the awareness stage, it's important that we're communicating to them in that mindset of awareness. See, most of us, we put out one kind of content, and that content is just whether it happens to be the type of content they're ready for at that moment or not, it's irrelevant to us, although it needs to be. So getting aware of what's going on in their mind, what are they dealing with, what kind of anguish are they facing, right? And then we present them with content that matches that. The second stage that people go through is the consideration stage. Here they're considering, what should I do? Should I solve this problem? Should I just ignore this problem? Do I try and do it myself? What are my options? Basically, what do I got going on here? What can I do? Right? So in this particular phase, your goal should be engagement. Try to engage them. So the content you're putting out should be much more engaging at that point in time. Addressing that, okay, they recognize they have a problem. Now they're looking for what's possible, right? So, and I always say they're looking to accept, mitigate, or eliminate, right? They're either going to accept what they've got going on and say, okay, no problem, I'll just deal with it, right? They'll mitigate it, meaning they want to do something about it, but nothing too big, right? So they'll do something to alleviate it a little bit. And then there's those that just want to eliminate the problem. My office is filthy. I want this never to happen again, right? They'll look to eliminate it. So understanding where a buyer is in their mindset at that point in time is always the key. So the third stage and big stage is the decision stage that they enter. Now they understand what it is they're dealing with. They understand what their options are. Now it's time to choose, right? This is when the sales are going to happen, right? So like I always say to clients all the time, one tool that's great to use is to have a simple Google ad that's aimed at people right now who want to buy right now. Because when somebody wants to buy right now, they might go on Google and say, hey, commercial cleaners near me, or residential cleaners near me, or mold remediation near my home, or whatever it is, right? They're in buying mode at that point. So we want to speak with them differently. We want to approach them differently. So again, we match our content to whichever stage that they're in. So yeah, this does mean that you need to have quite a bit of content. And also the medium you're delivering that content matters too, right? So in the awareness stage, I'm doing a lot of blogging. I'm doing a lot of social media posting where I'm just pointing things out and seeing what hits. People biting on things that I'm putting out there. When I'm getting more into my awareness stage, I mean, my consideration stage, I might be putting on webinars, right? I might be putting out a little bit more detailed content that shows who we are, right? And then the decision stage is when they're comparing, they're price shopping, they're comparing vendor to vendor, right? They might be asking you for a quote and asking these folks over here for a quote. So product brochures can play into that. There's all kinds of things. In my business, I do discovery sessions, right? Where we actually get into a deeper conversation on whether or not we should pursue working together. So those are your three main stages: awareness, consideration, decision. Recognize, and once again, they do not match exactly to your sales process. Knowing how to navigate or take your sales process and intertwine it with their buying stage is critical to how you succeed. Now, none of that happens if you fail to really, truly understand your target market and the pains that they face. If you truly get them and you understand them and what's going on in here, your marketing and sales become way easier. So take a stab at this. Think it through a little bit, because this will make the difference in how much money you spend, or I should say invest or waste in your marketing and sales process. Does that make sense, Jeff? Does that make sense?
It does. A lot of good stuff there, Dean.
Right.
So a couple questions.
Sure, of course. Shoot.
So you talk about the buyer's journey and making the sale and the profits and all that's good. What does this whole thing do about the building trust and relationships and maybe leading to more opportunity? Can you speak to
Right.
that?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, to build trust, this is where your content strategy comes in. What you're putting in front of them at any given time in their buyer's journey is very important. And hopefully you have enough content pieces that actually walks them through the journey. The sooner you get your hands on them, or the sooner they get exposed to your content, the better it is for you. So again, in the beginning, we're trying to establish engagement in that awareness phase, to get engaged, engage them with our content. That's usually where it comes from. If we're hitting them up with sales calls immediately and they're in the awareness stage, probably not happening. They're not ready for that yet, right? But might they be ready for a special report? Might they be ready for an article that you wrote on mold remediation or whatever it is? So your content is key to deepening that relationship, right? As
Mhm.
well as, depending, not everybody wants to form a deep relationship with a sales rep. I hate to tell you that. That's just the way it goes. Nobody wants to be sold. Everybody loves to buy when they're ready and when it solves a pain, but they don't want to be sold. And if there's an active relationship, sometimes sales folks are a little too aggressive. So having that content plan, using tools like marketing automation tools to deliver that content in a timely fashion, using polling and quizzes to find out where somebody is in that journey. All of this plays into you knowing what to say and what to use at any given point in that process. Right now, the second part of your question there, Jeff, it was a deep question, actually. The second part, you go from buyer's journey, you go to customer's journey. Customer's journey is where we start getting into retention and things like that. Okay, we got them, they bought from us. Now, how do we keep them? Right? And that's the customer journey that happens, which is probably a conversation for another day. But that's how, at least how I segregate it. The buyer's journey is before they buy from me. The customer's journey is once they buy from me. Now what? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And it sounds like this is not a process where you just start it and there's an end game. It keeps
Correct.
going. correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And sometimes you'll find that a prospect will bounce between stages.
Hmm.
They'll have setbacks that move them back to the awareness stage, right? They thought their problem was this. They find out it's not that. Now it's this. Now they're back to, back a step in the stages, and they have to go through their research again. But remember, most people these days, they start by Googling. What are people going to find when they Google? I'm hoping they find your articles. I'm hoping they find your podcasts. I'm hoping they find videos that you've shot. I'm hoping they find something that you've created that addresses that situation for your target market. So this way, oh, that's what I got. Okay, let me pursue that. And now you come across as the authority because they learned about what their problem truly is from you. So there's an affinity to you right out of the gate. Very important. Very, very important.